Let me tell you something. One of my favorite channels on YouTube is In Deep Geek. Uh, that guy's analysis of Game of Thrones is so freaking crazy. It's awesome. I mean, he really puts everything into perspective. And I've decided that all of these other, like, okay, when I first started watching Game of Thrones, I fell in love with the show. Obviously, I was disappointed in how the show kind of closed out. But I had said to myself when I heard there was going to be a prequel, don't do Robert's Rebellion, because I felt like I knew everything that happened. And I was like, I don't want to rehash all that. I want to see some of this other wider Game of Thrones universe stuff. So when House of the Dragon came out, I was super pumped up about it, right? And I'm still excited about House of the Dragon. I think it's a great show. I look forward to the upcoming season. But after listening to In Deep Geek, I have a total change of heart. This is the reason why. So, just to give you like a brief summary of what happened, Game of Thrones, we know, is based on Robert Baratheon rebelled against the king. So, Rhaegar supposedly ran off with Lyanna Stark, who was uh, betrothed to Robert Baratheon. He runs up off with Lyanna Stark, supposedly abducting her. Her brother goes to the king. Rhaegar is the prince. He's the heir to the throne. He goes to King Aerys. He's like, Rhaegar, come outside. I'll kill you, blah, blah, blah. And Aerys captures him. He demands that House Stark's head of their uh, house come down on, to, I guess, smooth it out. Kills both Brandon Stark and his father. And then demands to Jon Arryn, who Jon Arryn was a noble lord who was fostering the other Stark, Ned Stark, and Robert Baratheon, send him to me, basically, so I can execute him as well. They all decide to rebel. So it creates this amazing big war that leads to the episode that we have where Robert, after rebelling, he becomes king. Ned Stark, it brings him to become Hand of the King. And then there's a whole nother story about Lyanna Stark and what happened there. I'll try not to do any spoilers. However, my whole opinion of that changed by listening to In Deep Geek. And the reason why it changed is because it is so much more that goes into Robert's Rebellion and what was leading up to it than I previously thought. There is so much wrapped into that story, from the fact that Ned Stark's father was already positioning the North for some type of maybe possible breakaway. One thing he said in Deep Geek was it was very similar to World War One, when, of course, the catalyst for what started World War One was the Archduke being killed. However, the layout, the ingredients that created World War One were already set. They were already set. So yes, the Archduke being killed kicked off the war, but something else was going to happen because there was all these alliances made that created the avenue for the war to start. Let me just say something about that too. What always fascinates me about World War One is that Queen Victoria got her children and she like maneuvered all of these different marriages, because most of these royals are related. So she took her children and maneuvered all of these different marriages, and in a way it was to create like a one Europe thing, where it's like, okay, if Uh, this daughter's married to the king of, this country, and this son is married to the queen of this country. Well, their kids are all growing up as family. They're not going to fight, and we still got the greatest, Royal Rumble of them all. I mean, the Emperor of Germany and the King of England are first cousins during World War One, if I'm not mistaken. So that just a little side note, but I felt like listening to him, it was so amazing because I didn't think of it on that kind of level. That there's just so much more into Robert's Rebellion. Um, the things that were being put together, Bloodraven. Bloodraven has a lot to do with the conditions that were created that would bring about Robert's Rebellion. The things going on with the Targaryens prior to Robert's Rebellion. Rhaegar was doing there was a bunch of plotting going on. Varys has a deep story intertwined into this. The Duskendale situation. There's just so much into it that now, with all of these Game of Thrones side stories coming out, outside of maybe the whole situation with Jon Snow and what's going to happen with him, I think the biggest thing I want to see is Robert's Rebellion, because we already have the story written, so we don't need to let anybody play with it or nothing like that. And there's so much more minor details that we don't see in the show that I think would create a brilliant show. And then we have all the characters that we already know. We got Ned Stark, but he's young. We get to see all the, I guess they would have to rehire all the flashback people, but we get to see all of these people that we already have devotion to in their prime. I think that's the one they need to make. And again, a year ago, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, no, I want to see Aegon's conquest. I want to see the Blackfire Rebellion. I want to see all these side stories that, because I'm not an avid book reader, I would like to see because they're interesting and, I don't know much about them. But now that I've thought about it, to see the thing that made Game of Thrones as popular as it was, which is the interactions with the people in court and the fighting and the betraying and the, you know, dude, that's all in Robert's Rebellion. And the whole mystical part with Bloodraven and Howland Reed. See, if you're not really into it, you don't probably know these people I'm talking about. I'm telling you, Robert's Rebellion. So that's my push. That's what I want to see. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys think about this format, me sitting in the car. And I got to give all the credit to In Deep Geek. In Deep Geek. Robert of In Deep Geek. Great, great, great channel. It has made me think of Game of Thrones on such a deeper level. If you just like to be entertained and don't care about all this stuff, by all means, I apologize. But I'm telling you, check out his channel. It's so good that these things, I've watched them 2 and 3 times because it's just so much stuff that you don't think about. Because if you're like a casual fan like me that's not intertwined in the books, there's just so much brilliant things you want to think about. I'll talk about it some more later too.